Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name's Stephen and I'm a traditionally published fantasy author. Today I'm going to be talking to you about some more bad advice and why you should ignore it. I'm going to dissect the advice and then we're going to go through it together and work out what they're actually trying to say and come up with some practical advice at the end of what you should be doing. So we'll work through it together and I'm doing my best Marlon Brando Jarrell at the moment.
Here in this fortress of solitude, we shall try to find the answers together.
So the piece of advice I see quite often is that you should write every day. The theory being that if you do 500 words a day and you do it every day for 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, or whatever it might be, then at the end of those 10 months you will have a novel. However, this is actually bad advice, and I will explain the reason. The reason I think it's bad advice is that it's not sustainable. It might be that for 6 months, 8 months, you can do it once for a year and you have a book at the end of it. However, the odds of you actually becoming successful and getting that book traditionally published off your first novel are pretty slim. It does happen. Some people do it. I wasn't that lucky. A lot of my friends are the same who are traditionally published authors. They didn't get it there with their first novel. So what does that mean? That means you have to then spend another 8-10 months writing every single day and producing another novel, and then maybe another novel, and then another novel after that. You're starting to see the problem. The main issue is most writers, most published writers who are traditionally published, don't do it full time. They have part-time or full-time jobs. You can go into any supermarket, any Walmart, look along the shelves, and there's all the big names that you know, all the household names that you can quote and say, Stephen King and this one and that one, and they do it full time and they make lots of money. Yes, they do. They're the tip of the spear. Those are the people who are at the top. The rest of the industry, most of the other writers who are traditionally published, don't do it full time because they can't afford it. That's just how it is. That's part of reality. You have to kind of accept that. The other reason you shouldn't be writing every day, every single day that is that it's a trap. Because if you miss one day of writing, then the next day you might feel that you have to do 1,000 words to keep yourself on target. But what if you miss 2 days? Then you have to do 1,500 words. And what if you have a really bad week? How are you ever going to keep up and hit that 500 mark every single day? Forcing yourself to write every day creates guilt, because if you miss a day, you fall behind and you feel like you're not meeting your obligations. And you shouldn't feel guilty. You shouldn't be compelled to write. You should write because you want to and because you enjoy it. I never understand writers who say, I enjoy the process of having written, but I don't like actually doing it. Then if you're not enjoying it, why are you doing it? Writing can be difficult. Some days I sit down and it is a struggle to do it. And those days I don't particularly enjoy. But on the whole, I love writing. I love creating worlds and characters and going in different places. So giving yourself this rule that you have to do it creates this guilt trap, which creates negative emotions and feelings associated with writing. So you shouldn't do it. The other reason is if you write every day, then you're going to be missing out on the rest of your life. If you're compelling yourself that you have to do this, what else are you not doing? Spending time with family and friends and not giving them enough time, or your day job, or whatever else you might do. There are other obligations in your life that you should be paying attention to. Writing shouldn't be the be-all and end-all. And I know you're probably thinking, well, it's easy for you to say you've been traditionally published and you made it. Yes, however, there were many years and many novels that I produced that never saw the light of day. I sent them out and I got rejected over and over again. Anything I say shouldn't stop you from wanting to write. Any rule that someone says you must agree to this and you must do this to be successful shouldn't make any difference to you. You should write because you want to, and you should be driven to succeed, because what else are you going to do? I kept going because what else was I going to do? I'm a writer. That's what I do. The other reason you shouldn't write every day is because of the possibility of burnout. I know what some people are already saying. Well, I can write every day for 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, and I don't get burnt out. Great. Maybe you can. Now do it for 2 years. Now do it for 5 years. Now do it for 10 years, because it could take you that long to be picked up by an agent and then a publisher. I've suffered from burnout myself. You have to take time off. And that's, there again, I have a bit of guilt about that when I do it. Relaxing can be difficult, but that's my own issue. It shouldn't be yours. You need to take time off to rest, to recharge, and to give your brain space to just kind of decompile and do things. And you should have a life, a full life outside of writing. It shouldn't be absolutely everything. It's important to me, but it's not the only thing in my life, and it shouldn't be for you either. You should find balance because you need it. So, time for the practical writing advice. Write as often as you can, if you can. Doesn't have to be every day. So I'm going to tell you what I do. This is just me. This isn't the only way to do it. This isn't a rule by any stretch of the imagination. When I am writing, not every day, I set daily word counts. I also have a monthly word count that I have to get to. For me, it's important because I like to feel like I'm achieving something every month, but also because I have deadlines from my publisher. But even before I was published, I did that myself because I wanted to be able to look back and say, after a year, I've produced a draft of the book. Now, I know at the beginning I'm just saying you shouldn't push yourself. If you want to take a day off, relax, do something else, take a week off, recharge and come back to it. But you shouldn't be compelled to write because you feel as if you should, because someone's told you that. You should write because you want to do it and because you enjoy the process. My other bit of advice is to write in small segments, not huge slabs. Clearing 6 hours on a Sunday and there's nothing else going on and you're going to write 10,000 words. If you can do it, great. But focusing just on writing and ignoring everything else in the world for hours at a time is really difficult. It takes practice and it takes time. So I would suggest writing for small amounts of time regularly, and like any other muscle, build it up. So do half an hour. Find half an hour in the morning, lunchtime, whenever you can, sit down and write for 30 minutes. If you want to set a word count for yourself, great, but don't feel as if you have to. Do 30 minutes of writing as often as you can a week, and then see how much you produced at the end of that week. And then see how much you produced at the end of that month. And based upon that, if you want to, you don't have to, give yourself a target just to keep you moving forward. Because the best piece of advice I give over and over again is finish the book. You must finish that first draft. You must get the book done, polished, and then start on the next one whilst editing the other one. It's the only way forward. It took me a lot of novels, as I said earlier, and many years before I was picked up. And this is a common story. You go and listen to talks from any other traditionally published author. The majority of them say that. There are the exceptions to the rule, but most of us, it takes practice and it takes time. In a previous video, I talked about the 10,000 hours rule and why I think that's a bit of nonsense. So there's a link to it here, hopefully. You can check that out. It's another rule that you need to take with a pinch of salt, listen to some of it, but then go off in your own direction and just don't focus on it completely. So that's all I'm going to talk about today. If you like what I'm talking about, you like my advice, subscribe to this channel, like and share it. If there are any other questions you have about writing, post them in the comments below. If there's some topics that some writers haven't been covering that you'd like me to look at and explain and dig into, other pieces of good or bad advice that I think you should follow, then do so and get in touch. Thanks for listening. I'll be back later.